Speaking of interviews, Donald Trump is going around and he is being interviewed. A lot of the interviews that he is sitting down to, and I know there's a lot of criticism about Kamala Harris and her not being interviewed and her not taking interviews. She's going to start her interview tonight. I mean, first of all, number one, the woman's been on the campaign trail for a month. So, she's got to put together her whole plan. She's got to put together her policies. She has to put everything together before she could just go out and do interviews. And Lana had pointed this out in the last couple of shows. So, again, we're in a political climate now that no matter what, you just have to find something to attack. And that's been politics throughout our whole life. But some of the attacks are now getting to the point where they're just so ridiculously stupid that if the biggest attack on Kamala Harris is that she hasn't done an interview yet, ever since being the nominee for, or the potential nominee, and now the official nominee for just about a month, I'll take that all day. If that's our biggest complaint and one of our biggest things that you have against her, I think, she's going to wind up doing even better if that's the best that you can come up with. But Donald Trump goes to a lot of his safe spaces, and nobody calls that part out. I know a lot of people are saying Kamala Harris, first of all, she's sitting down with her running mate, which pretty much every president that I can remember sat down with a dual interview with their running mate, and this should be no different. But and I know a lot of people are saying, well, she ran to CNN. I think we pointed out on the last show, you could call CNN the far left arm of the Democratic Party. That's simply just not true. CNN is a news organization that tries to get as much money and viewers as they possibly can. They sensationalize their news. They're over the top with their news, but they are not a propaganda arm for the left like Fox News and Newsmax is for the right. It's not even close. It's not even on the same level of being the same thing. But Donald Trump is also doing interviews with people like Dr. Phil, and he's going on a lot of these shows that will appeal to younger men, Theo Vaughn, and some other podcasters that I've never heard of in my life. Tim Pool is another one of these guys that is, I guess, big on that side of the aisle. Maybe he's trying to get a few extra of these guys to vote for him. I think those people are already on board with him, whether or not they're going to register to vote, because I personally think, and I don't know this for sure, but this is just an educated guess at best, that a lot of the people that listen to the Joe Rogans and the Theo Vaughns and Tim Pools they want to be engaged in the conversation, but they're not necessarily registered to vote. In fact, I know people who love being part of these conversations that listen to these guys, but they're not even voting. So, and I suspect that there's a lot of people out there just like the people that I know. And so I don't know how much that is getting extra voters, because that's what Donald Trump needs. He needs more voters. He doesn't need the same voters. The same voters are already coming back. In fact, I'm not sure 100% of those same voters are coming back. Actually, it'd probably be impossible for all 100% of those voters to come back to Donald Trump. I'm not saying that they're necessarily going to move over to Kamala Harris, but I will say between the two candidates, I only know of one side that have organized groups that are called Republicans for Harris. I don't know of anything called Democrats for Trump. I don't know of anything for independents for Trump or anybody for Trump other than his already established base. But anyway, he sat down with Dr. Phil, and again, I don't know. These are the people that we are considering as journalists and the people that we need to sit down to get our news nowadays is just still stunning to me. But Dr. Phil is one of them now, I guess. I don't know what his audience is. First of all, is he even on TV anymore? Does Dr. Phil exist on television? And if not, where is Dr. Phil? He's doing interviews. Is he just like a YouTube guy now? I don't know. If anybody knows that's watching, or if you're watching later on the clips, if you could comment in the comments below, that would be great. But I'm not really sure where Dr. Phil is, but I know he is interviewing Donald Trump. And in this first clip, Donald Trump's about as delusional as you could possibly be. I know Dr. Phil likes to play a therapist on television, even though he's not really a therapist, but he likes to play one. And this would have been a great time to give Donald Trump a little therapy. In fact, during the clip, it looks like he tried to for a second, but Donald Trump believes that if there was a certain judge that was judging the election and that was overlooking the election, that he would win the state of California. And even more batshit crazy is the judge that he says, if he were in charge, he would make Donald Trump, he would ensure that Donald Trump was the winner of California, because that's what the real results say.
California, I gave a speech. I had a crowd so big. I said, there's no way I could lose California, but automatically they mark it down if you're a Republican as a loss.
This guy thinks crowd size indicates whether or not you're going to win an election. Now, the one thing I'll give him or anybody else that brings it up is that in 2016, there was this sort of movement that was happening, this ground swelling of Trump signs that you would have never thought you would have saw. You had people who, when they were being polled, they weren't necessarily answering Donald Trump, but they were definitely voting for Donald Trump, because back then it was, for them, embarrassing to say that they were going to vote for a guy that everybody was laughing at. Literally everybody was laughing at, including myself. So there was this groundswell that you felt, and he had these huge rallies and he had a bunch of people there. And I think he might still be associating that. And he thinks that that is the reason why he would still be winning this time. However, if you look at his rallies now, there's plenty of video evidence that shows you can pan around and see a lot of empty seats. So I'm not really sure what he's talking about, but let's get back to this delusional clip.
That you lose by 5 million votes. I said, 5 million votes? I guarantee, if Jesus came down and was the vote counter, I would win California, okay? In other words, if we had an honest vote counter, a really honest vote counter, I do great with the Hispanics, great. I mean, at a level that no Republican's ever done. But if we had an honest vote counter, I would win California.
You think so?
Oh, I think so. I do.
Even Dr. Phil can't believe it. And like I said, this would be a perfect time to start injecting some of that phony therapy that he likes to play on TV. But of course, he's not going to do that. He's another guy that is enamored with Donald Trump, even though he tries to pretend. If you heard him on interviews on other channels, he pretends like he's not. There's a lot of these guys who pretend like they don't love Donald Trump, or they don't love the idea of Donald Trump. They might not necessarily love him as a person. They might even, just look at the face of Dr. Phil. He's looking right at him and going, you dumb motherfucker. You're just so stupid. But I cannot have trans men transitioning into women and beating up my daughter in sports, which does not happen.
I see it. I go around California. They have Trump signs all over the place. It's a very dishonest. Everything is mail-in. They send out 38 million ballots. I think it is around 36, 38 million ballots. They send them.
Yeah, they send them. So again, if Jesus was in charge of the elections, Donald Trump would win California. Now, it is my understanding from a lot of religious people that Jesus is in charge and he is controlling a lot of things. So he is yet to step into any of these elections, unless maybe he was part of 2016, saw what happened for 4 years and said, Jesus, I called himself out and said, I may have made a mistake here, because this was an absolute disaster. And if Jesus has anything to do with the next one, the win from Kamala Harris over him is going to be even bigger than the one that Joe Biden had. But this next clip, Dr. Phil is asking Donald Trump about the assassination attempt on his life. And Donald Trump, again, so Jesus did not inject himself into the election, but guess who injected himself into saving his life?
So,
is there a purpose?
Well,
is there a reason you think you were spared?
I mean, the only thing I can think is that God loves our country and he thinks we're going to bring our country back. He wants to bring it back. It's so bad right now what's happening. When you look at the crime, the horrible things that are happening inside our country, and it can be solved. It can be solved fairly quickly. It has to be God.
Look, I'm not a religious guy. I admitted that before. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in any of that stuff. However, I am somebody that is, I'm pro people embracing their religion. I am pro people using religion as a way to make themselves and this world and their lives better. I'm all for that. I would back that up a million times. I would never disparage anybody's religion. I wouldn't, I wouldn't make fun of anybody about believing in God. But what Donald Trump is doing here is really disgusting. I mean, it's truly disgusting. He has absolutely no belief in God. He does not care about religion. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about any of this stuff. And I hear so many people say that Donald Trump, we're going to vote for him because he's a godly man. The guy who sleeps with porn stars, the guy who's cheated on all of his wives, the guy who is a convicted felon, the guy who was found liable for sexual assault. I can name a million different things, and you're telling me this is the face of the man that you want to use as your evangelical hero is absolutely insane to me. It makes no sense. And maybe the only way they make sense of it is by, I know they say this God works in mysterious ways. So it's very, in the Bible, God sent down a particular character or person or whatever it is, he wasn't the perfect person, but he actually came through. I know these are the things they use, but I don't know how many times Donald Trump has to prove over and over and over again he's not a godly man. The same way he's got to prove over and over and over again he doesn't love our military men and women. He disparages them constantly. How he is a great businessman. He has proven over and over and over again he's a terrible businessman. What are they missing? What are the people who still are in the camp of this guy who thinks he's so great at everything? What are they missing? How are they not seeing this when everything is in black and white? He was flat out asked, what's your favorite Bible verse? And that just absolutely blew his mind up. He had no idea how to answer that. He looked like a fool. I mean, anybody who truly loved God and Jesus, they will tell you right off the bat. They'll probably name 5 or 6 Bible verses that they loved. He couldn't name anything. He just couldn't. And he is using these people. And he also is doing it in the way of saying God saved his life. Now, in the previous clip, he said that if Jesus were counting the votes, that he would win. Well, again, I bring up the point. If God saved his life from a bullet, why did God not help him in the election? Especially if it were stolen. Why didn't God just step right in and go, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm not going to have unfair shit on my earth. That ain't happening. So I'm going to come down just like I did that bullet. I'm going to make sure, even though the bullet ricocheted or whatever it did and killed another innocent human being, I don't know how you explain that one, but I just don't understand how God stopped bullets to help from killing you because he wants you to win the election, but he didn't help you win the last election. Help me make sense of any of this. Finally, Dr. Phil did this thing that a lot of the interviewers do with this guy, is they pretend like he loves his family, which he doesn't. I'm positive that Donald Trump has some sort of, because he's a father and he gave birth to these children, there is some sort of connection there, but he strikes me as the kind of guy that if he could have gotten rid of all of them, that he probably would have, except for maybe Ivanka. He probably looked at a lot of them as an inconvenience. In fact, there's interviews, where he had said Melania's kid, Melania's son, didn't even claim him as his own. There's interviews where he says when he comes home, he expects the wife to have everything ready for him and all that stuff. But this is Dr. Phil, for some reason, asking him, did you hug your kids after this attempt? I mean, did this really bring it home for you? And again, a garbled, just batshit crazy answer from Donald Trump.
Your kids extra hard? I mean, has it changed you?
A lot of people ask me, and a lot of people say, like, have you developed any fear of, doing this? Like, because look, being president is a dangerous job. It's much more dangerous than a race car driver or than anything. It's probably the most dangerous profession, if you think about it. Just go up and down the list. So
Dr. Phil's pretending to take this guy seriously.
Numerous left early or got hit. It's a very dangerous job. I never realized how dangerous, but
he always finishes it up with that. I never realized. I mean, the economy, that's a tough one. I never realized. I never realized this. I never realized that. But he was asked whether or not he hugged his children and mentioned absolutely nothing about his children and went on to some crazy rant about how being president is more dangerous than a race car driver, or just go down the list and blah, yada, yada, yada. I don't know many jobs that have a full security detail on you at all times, 24 hours, 7 days a week. I'm not saying that being a president cannot be dangerous, because you do have a lot of kooky nuts out there, including the registered Republican who was a Trump supporter, who somehow got on the top of that roof with nobody seeing him and shooting down at him during one of his rallies. I don't know. That's all crazy.